Welcome back to the deep dive. You know, we get some really fascinating questions from our listeners.
Oh, for sure. Always keeping us on our toes, right?
This one, well, it came to us all the way from Vietnam.
Wow.
Yeah, beautiful, right?
Right.
Now, neither of us speak Vietnamese, but thanks to a translator, we get to dive into these really deep ideas with you today.
Awesome. I love it.
So ready to get a little mind-bendy?
Always. Bring it on.
All right. The listener starts with a really simple act. Think about biting into an apple.
Okay.
Something seemingly inanimate, right? But then it becomes part of you. How does that even work?
Yeah, that's wild when you really think about it. It's like it cuts right to the core of what it means to be alive.
Totally.
Yeah.
We kind of take this transformation for granted. Like, how does something out there become part of our living, thinking self?
Right. Just automatically assume it all works.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then this listener, they bring up computers. Like, yeah, they run on ones and zeros, pure information.
Right.
But do they actually understand that information?
Right. That's the big question, isn't it? I mean, think about it. A computer can process the words in a love letter,
Okay, yeah.
analyze the patterns, maybe even predict what the next word might be.
Right.
But it could never get the underlying emotion, the experience that gives those words meaning.
I see what you mean. It's like data versus understanding,
Yeah.
which makes me think about DNA. It's like the blueprint of life, right?
Yeah, it's often called that. But it's so much more dynamic than just static information.
You're right. How so?
Well, think about it. DNA is always interacting with its environment, responding to signals, even repairing itself.
Oh, that's right.
It's a system, really, like the foundation for all the amazing complexity we see in life.
Huh. That reminds me of, well, this listener also asks about wood and stone. They were once part of living things, right? Trees and mountains.
Yeah.
But are they alive now?
Yeah.
In the same way?
Ooh. That is a question that has puzzled people for, well, forever, really. Philosophers, scientists, I mean, the usual way we define life is through things like organization, metabolism, reproduction. But maybe, just maybe, like you're getting at, there's a whole spectrum of aliveness that we haven't quite grasped yet.
So back to that apple. You bite, you eat. It becomes a part of you. Like it fuels our thoughts, our actions, even our emotions, right? What's happening on a biological level to even make that possible?
Well, it's a whole intricate dance of digestion, absorption, and assimilation. I mean, our bodies are just incredible at breaking stuff down. Like,
Okay.
imagine a crew carefully taking apart a building,
Okay,
sorting all the pieces, bricks and beams and all that to use in something new.
I get it. So those molecules from the apple, they actually become the building blocks for our cells.
Exactly. It's incredible. And it's not just about the structure.
Wow.
All that energy stored in the apple's chemical bonds,
Yeah.
that becomes the fuel for all our bodily functions. Keeps our hearts beating, our brains firing.
It's pretty amazing, isn't it? Like a total transformation. This listener, they brought up this idea, almost poetic, of embedding consciousness into the apple. But how does that even work with what we actually know about consciousness?
See, now that's where things get really interesting. We've mapped the brain, we study how neurons connect. But the real core question, like what consciousness is, how it comes from physical stuff, that's still a huge mystery.
So we started with eating an apple.
Right.
Now we're talking about the biggest questions out there. Almost like the apple itself holds a key to these deeper mysteries.
Maybe it does. Sometimes those everyday things lead us to the biggest questions of all.
Let's keep going with that. We touched on information, meaning
Yeah.
even the definition of life itself. But what happens to all that as that apple becomes us?
Makes you think about all those sci-fi movies, right? Downloading your mind into a computer.
Oh, totally.
But if we don't even get our own consciousness, how could we ever transfer it?
Right. It's like, is consciousness something you can even put somewhere else? Or is it more like it just appears when things get complex enough?
Lots of theories out there. Like, there's this one integrated information theory, it's called.
Okay.
It says consciousness is like a measure of how well a system connects information,
Yeah.
how interconnected it is.
So like one tiny brain cell wouldn't be conscious, but billions of them talking to each other, that could be.
Exactly. And it links back to what we were saying about life being this web. Maybe consciousness isn't just in our heads, but it's kind of woven into everything.
Whoa. So instead of asking, what is consciousness?
Right.
Maybe it's, where is it?
Right. And that brings us back to those computers.
Yeah.
Powerful, yeah. But they're not really connected to the world, are they? Not like us.
So even if we built a perfect brain copy, it wouldn't be conscious because it's missing that link to the bigger picture.
It's a thought, isn't it? Life's not just about processing data. It's about being part of the whole crazy system.
This is really making me rethink things. Like, what's alive? What's conscious? Even where the line is between me and everything else.
Speaking of lines, remember how we said DNA is always interacting with its surroundings? That brings up epigenetics.
I've heard of it, but
Basically, it's how the things we experience, they can change how our genes work.
hold on. Even though DNA is the blueprint, our experiences can change how it's used.
Precisely. Like imagine a cake recipe.
Okay.
You can follow it exactly, but the cake will be different depending on your oven, the altitude, even the flour.
Ah, I see. So genes are the recipe, but our environment's kind of tweaking the final product.
Exactly, meaning we're not just what our genes say, it's this whole nature and nurture thing.
That makes me think about the apple again. It's had sun, nutrients from the soil, maybe even bugs crawling on it.
Right.
All that becomes its story, part of what it is.
And when we eat it, we're not just getting molecules right. It's like we kind of take in those experiences too, layers of meaning built right in.
Wow. That's kind of beautiful, but also a little scary. Do we carry those echoes inside us? Does it change us?
Now that takes us beyond just science, gets into philosophy, maybe even spirituality.
True. We can measure the apple's chemicals, but how do you measure an experience?
That's the challenge, isn't it? Maybe the real mystery's hidden there. Some deeper connection we're only starting to grasp, where information and meaning, they're like all mixed up.
My head's spinning a bit, but in a good way. We went from an apple to, like, the mysteries of the universe.
And it all comes back to what is life. The biology is one thing, but you're making us think bigger. Like, not just individual things, but the whole interconnected shebang.
You said earlier there might be a spectrum of aliveness. What if consciousness is on that spectrum too? Not just in brains, but in ecosystems, planets, even the universe itself.
Now you're talking. It sounds wild, but some physicists, cosmologists, they're looking into that kind of stuff.
So from biology to philosophy to the cosmos, all from an apple.
And we haven't even gotten to the ethics of it all yet.
That's true. If we're all connected like that, it changes how we see the world. It's not just about ME anymore. It's about the whole system being healthy.
Interesting, right? Because the way we see things in the West, it's often all about the individual. But lots of older cultures, they've always understood that connection.
Like we're rediscovering ancient wisdom through science.
Exactly. Maybe we're heading towards a way of living that's more in tune with everything.
I hope so. We started talking about information versus meaning, and I think what we're finding is meaning doesn't just come from us thinking about things. It comes from how everything's linked together.
It's like the universe itself is this giant network of meaning, and we get to be a part of it, adding to the story as it goes.
To our listener from Vietnam, thanks for this incredible journey.
We might not have all the answers, but hopefully we've made you even more curious.
And everyone listening, remember, keep asking those big questions. Keep looking for new angles. And embrace the mystery of it all.
Now, before we finish up this deep dive into, well, pretty much everything, thanks to your Apple question, there's one last thought I want to leave you with.
Go for it.
If we're always taking in stuff from other living things, does that mean we're also taking on a responsibility to take care of that whole web of life that keeps us going?
That's a big one. Really gets to the core of what it means to be alive, connected like this.
It's a challenge to think beyond just what we want and consider the whole planet, everyone on it.
Maybe that's the most important thing we've learned today.
Maybe it is. We might not have all the answers, but if we stay curious, open-minded, and remember that connection, we can keep exploring life and our place in it.
Really makes you stop and think, like we're not just these separate people walking around.
It's a whole different way of seeing things. We're part of this huge system, all tangled up. Matter, energy, stories, everything's mixing.
It makes me wonder about food. We're always talking about vitamins and calories and all that.
Right.
But what about the other stuff? Like the energy of food or the information it carries?
You're thinking about what we said before, about the apple's experiences becoming part of its story.
Exactly. Like, is there a difference between, say, an apple grown on a local farm and one that's been flown in from who knows where?
Well, science is just starting to look into that, like how different ways of growing food or processing it might change it, not just the vitamins, but on a deeper level.
It's like we're rediscovering what older cultures have always known, that food is connected to how we feel, not just physically, but in other ways too.
Goes back to that idea that consciousness is everywhere, not just in brains, but maybe in the food we eat, the plants, the animals.
Wow. So we're really coming full circle here. Back to that apple. It's not just about digestion and molecules. It's about taking in something much deeper, the experiences, the stories, maybe even a little piece of consciousness.
It's beautiful, isn't it, that every bite connects us to this big dance of life. Everything's linked.
Yeah, it is. So I guess the biggest takeaway today is that we're not just individuals. We're part of this amazing web of life, and it's all connected.
It supports us, it feeds us, and in a way, it makes us who we are.
That's a good way to put it. To our listener who asked this question, thank you. What a journey.
We might not have figured everything out, but hopefully we've sparked some new thoughts for you.
And everyone listening, don't stop asking the big questions. Keep looking for new ways to see things. And keep exploring this incredible universe we're all a part of.
And that's a wrap for this deep dive.
Thanks for joining us on The Deep Dive. And until next time, keep on exploring those fascinating questions.